Sit, and you also raise your hand. So if you are in support that the proviso, which enables the presiding officer to proceed to the next center for collation with the hard copy of the sign from EC8A, so that collation can continue. Don't open your mouth. Raise your hand. Stand up, raise your hand. Don't open your mouth so that the public can see you. Because the social media must see you. Now, we don't want to see those who are insisting that if it does not, we want to see those who are saying if the transmission or communication fails, that the election stops there.
Yes, top of the moment to you Nigerians from wherever you are joining me from. My name is Comrade Lamti Oriake, and of course you are on to the Comrade Show. Sometimes when we want to talk about the state of Nigeria, it's just a difficult thing to find a starting point. I've been away from this space for quite a while, and deliberately so. Apparently, I have been observing everything flying around. And of course, most recently, it's been about electoral act, electoral reform, and all that has been happening around. I personally have been away apparently because the story of Nigeria is a never-ending tale, particularly when some of us have gotten to the point where we just look at the situation of Nigerian state today as a vicious circle. And somehow, for whatever reason it is, the people who are supposed to take responsibility, have just deliberately refused to take responsibility. And so at the end of the day, Nigeria remains in an unending quagmire of social disorder, of insecurity, of, so many negatives. And it's quite shameful that the pain that we inflict on ourselves, on the Nigerian state, are also the pain that we inflict on ourselves by ourselves. For ourselves. I've looked around with where we are now with the electoral act. I just thought this evening, let me equally add my voice, to what is happening. I don't know how many of you are watching me right now, but if you are there, please share the broadcast if you could. And I don't know how many of you are looking at what is happening currently in Nigeria as just a mere drama. For some of us, what has happened or what is happening currently is a very clear sign that 2027 is almost a done deal. Which means that in 2023, when we had a shambolic presidential election, between then and now, for whatever reason it is, we seem not to have learned from the mistakes of the past. As a matter of fact, we have now, taken a step further to legalize, the mistake of the past and give, room for the same mistake to happen, not under any form of illegality, but with a legal backing. That has been the debate on the floor of the National Assembly. And somehow it's evident that the principal players in the National Assembly, they are all part of this whole coup. civil coup against Nigerian people. Now, what is most outrageous is that the Nigerian people seem to forget that we have the power to make the change happen. I'm going to talk about Peter Obi and, of course, his ambition. But I just want to try to use these to establish the things I want to talk about. For those who may not be aware, the debate has been on the floor on the issue of electronic transmission of, election results in real time. And what has been the contention after agreeing on some of the salient points has been the proviso, the clause, inserted in this same amendment to say that where network is not available, manual collation from EC8, as they say, should be used as previously, as far as the status quo has actually been. And that proviso, we all know that when that, clause is there, that is going to be the order of the day. It is going to be the open window, okay, for election to be compromised. And that has been the reason why Nigerians have been keeping out, some of them, to protest, to say, man, look, we do not want any clause. We just want, the electronic transmission of results and all of that. And what we see is that the ruling class, those that have engendered, that have sat on everything about this country, that have ensured that we do not advance, it has been a contest between those people and the rest of Nigerians. Unfortunately, majority of the rest of Nigerians are passive Nigerians who are not taking part in the process at all. So at the end of the day, the few voices out there, okay, like what we've seen recently, they are tear gassed, they are hoodwinked, they are edged to the side. And even when those voices are screaming, very loudly, it is just like business as usual to the ruling class. Now, they managed to use whatever they have to scale this bill through. And in less than 24 hours, a bill of over 100 pages was assented by the president of the country. Apparently, that sends a lot of message. There's been a huge media voice against the passage of this bill into law. I have some of those excerpts that I like to play because that excerpts that come across, from voices of Nigerians, I think, in my opinion, should be listened to. Let's take a listen.
I recommend to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu not to sign the bill as it is.
It is by indeed humble recommendation to Mr. President that you are a man of history. You were a senior man to very many of us in the struggle at a time when the journey of Nigeria and the prospect of democracy was less certain. What is going to be presented before you is a recipe for chaos. It's a recipe to undermine all that you have done while we were in the trenches. And also remember that at a time when the PDP was in office, and when we were in office, and they were saying that there was going to be a federal might, some of us stood out to say, no, in 2015, it's going to be the might of the people, not federal might, but the might of the people, through the ballot, that should determine what will happen. You should be a man of history. What is put before you, please take it back. Don't sign it.
Okay. Okay. Now, that's just one of many voices. We're actually allowed to say, Mr. President, you cannot sign this bill. It should be taken by the National Assembly for them to do the needful. Because the voice of Nigerians and the body language of Nigeria is tilted towards one direction. And that direction, in every argument, is to have a free, fair, and reasonably credible elections come 2027. Now, the reason why this is so important, let's take this a bit seriously. If you look at Nigeria today, every Nigerian, home and abroad, can sit down and sum up the nature of the Nigerian state. Nigeria is characterized by high level of insecurity. It's characterized by corruption. It's characterized by, lack of democratic dividends. It's characterized by poverty and, a missed abundance of resources. It's characterized by a whole lot of things that are really, really unpleasant, not good. Now, the reason why the state of Nigeria is like this is not far-fetched. The Bible says, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and every other thing shall be added unto it." Now, if you, leave that and use it to describe the Nigerian state, everything I've mentioned and a lot more, lack of basic amenities, no good roads, no hospitals, nothing for the people of Nigeria. They are all every other thing that should be added onto having seek the kingdom. Now, what kingdom do we need to seek in Nigeria? It is the kingdom of proper democracy that begins from an election by the people, for the people, and of the people. Now, this means election that is reasonably free, fair, and credible. Election where the voice of the electorate actually determine who becomes whom politically as far as the country is concerned. If the people chooses to elect someone who is demonic, provided the voice of the people is the backing of that someone, that is a democratic process. And it is a process like that that is free, fair, credible, that can guarantee the dividends of democracy as far as democratic process is concerned. Now, if election can be undermined by a certain group of people and they bring themselves to power, and a free, fair, credible election cannot be guaranteed, there is no way the people can have basic amenities available to them. There is no way the people can reap proper dividends of democracy. There is no way the people can have fair, credible representation. There is no way the people can lead a proper life. That is the fate of Nigeria. And that has been since independence. We have never historically had any elections where people will say, yes, we have truly given ourselves a government that is by the people, for the people, and of the people. There's never been. The only time we probably had something near that probably would have been in 1993. And that election that the whole world, saw as the freest and the most credible election ever had in the history of this country was annulled by the military junta led by, Babangida. Ever since, it's been from frying pan to fire. Most painfully in recent years, on the 25th of March, if I'm not mistaken, in 2023, Nigerians went out. We had one Peter Gregory Obi who galvanized the people, who became very popular with a very strong axiom, the obedient, with the obedient people coming out. And we had a massive election where history was made, except that history was rewritten. And many have argued that what INEC announced was not reflective of the will of the people of Nigeria. Now, in that election, there were a lot of, malpractice that people, can allude to. And INEC came out to say, in some areas, where results were being expected, INEC came out to explain it away, to say that there was a glitch. And to that extent, there was an open door for so many things to happen. And at the end of the day, against the expectation of Nigerians, and of course, as many would argue today, against the will of Nigerians, a president was announced. And that's the current President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And within the last 3 years, up until now, since he's been president, Nigerians can totally tell what the story has been. If the information I'm getting is not, it's not a wrong information, we are about 1 year away for another election, presidential election, 2027, which I think I've heard that INEC has proposed a date around the February of 2027, which means that election matters are beginning to heat up again in Nigeria. And right now, everybody is yearning for a law that would, ensure that what we saw in 2023 will not happen in 2027. And that is to ensure that all of those loopholes around our own electoral act, they are corrected and passed into law as a guideline for INEC to conduct 2027 elections. That has been a contention. There's been protests, there's been a lot, there's been arguments, there's been counter-arguments. At the end of the day, when I now look at what the National Assembly have passed, and I looked at 2023, what we had, the difference I see is very marginal, except that in a very pronounced way, it seems like what the National Assembly has now passed is to now legalize a window through which anything can happen to compromise the 2027 elections. Now, this is where the matter becomes very, very dramatic. Now, the drama in this matter is we have seen situations in other climes where, even when certain bills have been, passed by the National Assembly and taken to the presidency will look at those bills and look at the interests of Nigerians and further advise the National Assembly, to look at such bills again before the presidency can assent to those bills. Now, in this case, a bill of over 100 pages, in less than 24 hours, the president assented to the bill, which again looked very strange to very many people that are, arguing this case. Let's take a listen to this, guest of Arise TV. I'm particularly fascinated by his expose, very brief expose on this matter, so that many people could understand exactly some of the points I'm trying to make with this video. It's not going to be too long. After this now, we're going to try to now look at, some of the candidates we have and some opinions I'm now beginning to have about, Peter Gregory Obi. Let's take a listen.
We 99% yesterday, I think I said somewhere that 99% chances that the president is going to sign it. He's not going to withhold his assent on it. So the president did not surprise us. So there were no surprises. And this is further verified with the speed upon which it is signed. This is less than 24 hours, 120 something pages, and in less than 24 hours. So let me tell you the process. So once a bill comes out, it goes to the president for assent. The president has got a team. The minimum is the Attorney General must go through it, and it takes its time. That's why the law allows the president up to 30 days to either sign it or send it back to the assembly. So, but this was done within 24 hours. And this kind of bill, so we've spoken to INEC. In the past, a copy is also sent to INEC to review and go through it and say, yes, this is fine, this is okay, we can implement this and all of that. So INEC is supposed to have a say. The Minister of Finance is supposed to also look at it and say, are there financial implications? Can we fund those financial implications that are coming up from the bill? And before the president then goes ahead to sign or not to sign. But it looks like both the executive and the legislators developed this bill together, debated it together, and at the end of the day, passed it together, and of course, signed it together. So, and this is all against overwhelming majority of Nigerians, particularly one clause.
All right, Nigerians. Earlier I did say that our politics is a vicious circle, because this again is speaking to the quality of the people that we say we are electing to represent us, not just as president or governors, but the people in the National Assembly. I have followed what has been happening in Rivers State, a joke of a democracy. the people that we are electing into our houses of assembly, national assembly, every other thing. So at the end of the day, instead of us having separation of powers, where each organ of government is checkmating the others and balancing this out in the interest of Nigerian people, what we are having rather is a very immoral fusion of power, where we can argue effectively and to say that both the executive and the legislature, and of course the judiciary, have been fused very dangerously. And this fusion is such that to undermine the Nigerian people, to keep on projecting the corrupt interests of the ruling class. Now, in a nutshell, if you ask me, 2027 election, by this bill signed by Mr. President, has just been won by the APC. Because I have reasonable, submission to make in respect to this. I have reasons to believe that before this bill was passed, collusion has taken place. They have looked at 2027 elections and looked at ways that the election can be compromised by INEC. Let's not forget that the current INEC chairman, as was the last, these are people, chosen by whatever criteria, by the president of Nigeria, who is also a stakeholder in the coming elections. That matter itself is a huge problem to our democratic process, as it were, because you cannot afford to be a judge in your own court. It's only in Nigeria that is happening. Now, it's looking like before the National Assembly came up to even debate this bill, they've already finalized it. So, which means that every future, electoral malpractice or error that we are going to see, have been decided and have been given legal backing by the signage of Mr. President on this particular bill. So, which means that majority of the polling units may come in tomorrow, with, of course, the same argument by INEC to say that there was no, network, or there was no network signal. So, therefore, these polling units, wards, and local governments, have to be collated manually. And at the level of collation, manual collation, and every other thing, a lot of things we know, do happen. And that is the pain of Nigerians. That is the suspicion of Nigerians. It is the fear of Nigerians. It's the argument of Nigerians. And the only thing is that why Nigerians are suspicious, why Nigerians are agitating privately and some publicly, Nigerians have refused to take the bull by the horns. Now, let me take us back. Many of us may not know. Nigeria is the most populous black nation in the world. It's the largest country in Africa, the most populous country in Africa. Nigeria is very populous to the extent that Nigeria ranks as one of the 10th most populous countries in this world, with intellectuals everywhere, with a thriving class of young people. Nigeria is such a big nation. But I want to remind us, for those of us who may not know, I just want to pull this up so that I read from this. Bangladesh in 2024, the most prominent recent example is the July Revolution. I'm reading from this script I just posted. July Revolution, or the Gen Z Revolution in Bangladesh, where student protests forced Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina to resign and flee the country in August of 2024. The movement started as a protest against job quotas, grew into a non-cooperation movement, and toppled the government after a violent crackdown, resulting in significant loss of life, followed following the ouster, an interim government led by, Nobel laureate Dr. Mohammed Yunus, was formed. And recently, the Bangladeshi, had the election where they elected a new president or prime minister, as the case may be. And of course, the story to that effect is that even the party that was ousted was banned from contesting. Power of the people. I'm not asking Nigerians to, revolt and remove their president and every other thing. You understand what I'm saying now? But what I'm using this statement to make is to say that Nigerians have the power to determine certain change. Because whether we like it now or not, the issue we are having is that we have a ruling class that is oppressive, that is subjugative, that is pushing Nigerians to the brink. And the only thing Nigerians have not done is to truly embrace the power that they have as the power of the people to say, no, we capitally reject this position. We have a few people that we have elected into the National Assembly, and this is what they are doing. And what they are doing rather is a coup against the people of Nigeria. And we can argue it so. This was 2024. It's not too long ago that this happened in Bangladesh. Now, we can cite some other examples. Okay? I put this one up a bit. In 2025, Nepal, in September 2025, students-driven anti-corruption protests in Nepal escalated to the point where protesters stormed parliament and forced resignation of Prime Minister K.P. Sharma Oli. This is 2025. 2025. Many of us would have seen this particular news. I mean, it's raged on, television everywhere. You could see, what's it called? Elected representatives scaling through the fence and every other thing. So many things. Because it got to the people here. And the people resorted to the very last means of expression, which is to say a capital no. And there was a mass movement to that effect. Nigerians currently are just going to idle away, wait until again their future is stolen. Personally, I do not have a problem with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu remaining the president of Nigeria in 2027. What I do have a problem with is any chance that the election may be compromised to the point where seeds of doubt will be sown in the minds of Nigerians and of course international observers. And what they have passed right now is already a sign pointed towards that direction. Now, we can talk about other examples where some other countries have taken, reasonable action. Sri Lanka, 2022. It's another example. Aragalaya struggle movement 2022, which was largely youth-driven, successfully toppled President Gotabaya Rajapaksa or Paksa following a severe economic crisis. All of this I'm talking about right now, okay? They happened because the people could no longer endure. And the things that force the people to revolt, I'm not calling for a revolt against our government, but I'm calling for a revolt against the change to the status quo. I'm not calling for a revolt for that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu should be told. We don't want, we probably don't even want to be in a state of political topsy-turvy at the moment. But we can make a strong statement. I mean, there have been revolutions that did not directly remove a president or, or legislative members, but that drove change, that the will of the people counted. As I speak, it is not too late to seek that newer world. It is not too late for Nigerians to demand this change. What the president has done does not elicit hope, is driving frustration. I have been offline for, I don't know, for months, but I said, no, I must add my voice to this matter. Personally, I am honestly very, very disappointed, but it's not enough. A lot of people, everybody's disappointed. Most people are disappointed. But this, as argued by the likes of Guinea and many others, is already a time bomb. Except that this time bomb, it remains to be seen if Nigerians will detonate this time bomb. If Nigerians will respond to say, no, we have had it to our ear. Now, this brings me to Peter Gregory Obi. And I want to talk about Peter Gregory Obi briefly. In 2023, because Peter Gregory Obi is part of this whole, collective hope of many Nigerians. In 2023, many of us, we place ourselves in the forefront of that drive, the obedient movement. And of course, many of us believe very strongly in Peter Gregory Obi. Fortunately, what happened. And I'm talking about this Peter Obi right now because I've had, calls from friends, some, Biden supporters that are already in the forefront. Saying, look, where are you launching this? And I want to make my own submission public. In 2023, I believed very strong that Peter Obi was going to be the Messiah for this country. 2-3 years down the line, I am no longer of that optimism that I had in 2023. I'm not. Is Obi, in my mind, looking at the field, still the best candidate, to be supported? Yes. Is Obi still that candidate that I believe will bring a monumental change to this country? No. No. This is subject of my own opinion based on certain antecedents in recent history. And this is not to douse anybody's optimism. Will I support and vote for Peter Gregory Obi in 2027? Yes. Will I mobilize for Peter Obi in 2027 presidential election? Still under review. Still under review. Now, why am I saying this? I probably think I want this message to get to the stable of those supporting Peter Gregory Obi and for Peter Obi, because it is never too late to seek a newer world, to be that person. In 2027, within the bubble of the obedient movement, we're all involved because Obi, whether we like it or not, for me, I would see reasonably the man is a decent man. But has he, within the last 2-3 years, proven to me to be that man, that will be president and will be president? I have a serious argument against that. Now, I have been observing the scenario since Obi, lost the election finally to the Supreme Court. Tinubu, revalidated by the Supreme Court as the president of Nigeria. A few things have happened. First, it was with the issue of the Labour Party. There was an Abure as the president of the Labour Party, and so many things happened. At the beginning of that process, Obi overwhelmingly was the heart and the soul of the Labour Party. And I thought that a strong leader would take certain decisions at that time to stabilize the ship of the Labour Party and get things going. For some reasons, some of us argued that Obi did not do that for this and for that. even when the presidency was arguably argued by many to have been stolen by the current administration, using the instrument of state and every other thing. Obi had a very, very strong mandate, even though it was apportioned 6 million votes. He had a very, very strong mandate to issue statements that will move Nigerians to a certain revolution. And I had this discourse with somebody in recent days. And the person was like, oh no, Obi staying quiet, not taking any action, was probably best for our democracy. I said no. I probably argued that previously. But looking at this now, no. The reason is because, the guy said, Obi probably, if he had made a statement, they would have just, sent him to prison, blah, 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 and Nigeria would have been in turmoil and every other thing. I probably thought that if we had had a revolution then in 2023, occasioned by Obi galvanizing Nigerians to say this cannot be accepted, and Obi goes to prison, he probably would have been out by now. And what Nigerians would have seen in that 2023 after a clear robbery of the will of the people would have probably changed the discussion of our political future for good. Obi did not make the call that only somebody in his position would have made. If Bola Ahmed Tinubu, that I know today as president, was in position of Obi in 2023, he would have made that call. He would have driven Nigerians out into the streets. He did it before, even when it was not contested. He did it with Nadeko, when he was a statesman, when he was in the trenches. Today, that political capital is part of what has galvanized him into what he is today, the president of Nigeria. Now, I will not judge Obi on that holistically. And of course, the drama with Labour Party, to be or not to be, everything was happening. And somehow, Obi walked without blame. Mr. Gregory Obi has always taken the steps cautiously, not to be blamed. And I've sat down to see any leader who is always conscious and wants to be right before everybody, that leader has a deficit when it comes to presiding over a complex country like Nigeria. Any leader who runs away deliberately, any leader who is collected and don't want to be mentioned into matters of very serious decision, whether to blame him or not to blame him, that leader has a deficit when it comes to leading a country as complex as Nigeria. Whether we like it or not. What's his name? Bola Ahmed Tinubu takes his decision. Most often not favorable to Nigerians. He leads. Now, with the issue of the Labour Party and all that transpired under the Labour Party, I was expecting a Peter Obi to issue very strong statements that will revamp the Labour Party. Whether he was going to be right about it or not, but take a stand with the people of Labour Party that wanted Labour Party to stand as a party of reckoning. Or through all the misdemeanor of, what's his name, Abure. Peter Obi was blameless. Peter Obi was always walking the fine line. Never wanted to offend Obure, never wanted to offend those opposed to Obure, which is the ordinary members of the Labour Party. And there was no way he could make that balance to the extent that the fraction emerged under the Labour Party. You now have one Apapa group, one group, different this, different that. So many things were happening. The only person who took no stand with anybody was Peter Gregory Obi. That character, for me, is a character of presidential deficit. That is why today I'm not very enthused about all of these drama. Now, looking at Peter Obi's trajectory, he governed his state as Abga governor. He later joined the PDP. He ran as vice to Atiku Abubakar under the PDP. Lost. The following year, he now ran as president. But when he saw the scheming taking place under the PDP, he didn't stay. Because he needed to get a ticket, he left and joined the Labour Party. For him, PDP had crisis. Atiku was having upper hand. They may have bought all delegates and every other thing. He left. In Labour Party, where we saw him as personally as a messiah that's come to come and rescue Nigeria. Labour Party had crisis, leadership crisis, and many other crises. All of a sudden, Peter Obi again walked to be blameless. And what he has done now is to jump ship and move, and after several, whatever scheming or whatever it is, nobody heard his voice. No argument before loyalists of the Labour Party. No discussion with even members of the Labour Party. Even, people, in Spain, in Spain, they call them the militant. The ordinary people that are, fronting the obedient movement. No national conversation. He has had discussions, had meetings with various, political gladiators, and all of a sudden, Peter Obi is now in ADC. Having moved from ABGA to PDP to Labour Party, now to ADC. Personally, when he announced his defection to ADC, I was very, very, very disappointed. Now, the reason why I'm disappointed is this. ADC is not a new political party per se. It's been there. It's been lying down there. But I now looked at the front runners of the ADC that Peter B has now probably had a negotiation with. And it's not part of the ADC family right now. And the prominent figures you will name in the ADC: Atiku Abubakar. What's his name? El-Rufai, Amechi. Name them. All of these people you will name, all these prominent people, at one time or the other, they've held relevant political positions as either vice president of this country, or as governors of this country, or as members of the National Assembly of this country. All of them. All the big wigs of the ADC. And all these big wigs, they are the same people that Nigerians want to escape from. To make me in 2023 say it must be Peter Obi or nothing. Now the question is, even though I doubt that Peter Obi will get a ticket under the ADC, even though they may have schemed and had discussions and they are promising that they're going to give him the ticket, if Peter Obi emerges the presidential candidate of the ADC and he becomes president of Nigeria, what negotiation has he reached with Atiku Abubakar to make that happen? What interest has this signed with Atiku Abubakar at the expense of Nigerians? What negotiation would he have reached with Malam El-Rufai, who is crying today because he's being, hounded by the, what's it called, the anti-corruption or whatever that is working for Bola Ahmed Tinubu? The same thing that he did when he was governor, many of the things that he did. The same El-Rufai that is found wanting, one of those that have subjugated Nigerians, one of those that arguably have stolen from this country. What would be the negotiation? What agreement would that be have reached with these characters? And many. Amechi was Minister of Physical Works under former Buhari, was governor of Rivers State for 8 years. These are people that Nigerians are pointing fingers at. The people that have driven this country to where we are now. And the question is, if they did not transform Nigeria with the 99 lives they had previously, are they going to transform Nigeria in their 100th life? Now, I have issues with that. And the only reason why we're having this conversation is because Peter Obi, as a leader who was almost becoming the president of Nigeria 3 years ago, was unable to provide that leadership essence to stabilize his own political party that should have been his home, his base, the Labour Party. He left. And I asked myself, looking at these, yes, thank you, my brother. Transport Minister, that's what was his name. Yes, Amechi was Transport Minister. Thank you for, Looking at this, the question I ask is the political currency of Peter Gregory Obi. Is it one that can be, that a messiahship can be bestowed upon? Because the Benin man says, it is from a good, a child, you become a good adult. A man, a leader who practically cannot be exemplified to say as a leadership, practice. This is what he's standing for, not what he's saying. This is what he's doing. This is what he's standing for. If I cannot see that as a leader under the Labour Party, whether Labour Party crumbles or not, but I cannot see this is the position Obi had. And publicly, and everybody say, yes, Obi stood for this under the Labour Party. The whole world issued statement to say Abure is not the president of Labour Party. There was no statement from Obi. And I began to see, I sat down and I began to recall some of those guys that have actually also attacked. People like, what's his name? His former spokesperson, the Nollywood film star, trying to remember his name now, who has become an opposition to Peter Obi. All of us began to ask, why were this? Could this be part of the reason why these guys stood in opposition? Now, what I'm explaining now is the things I have observed as a distant obedient, who would have expected, who never anticipated or even thought that, come what may, stabilize your ship. Nigeria is a more turbulent country than the Labour Party. If you cannot use your own prowess, your own, your own political currency, as it were, your own support base, as you were, thank you, my brother, who has now become an opposition to Peter Obi. If you cannot use that to hold the Labour Party together, whether Labour Party crumbles or don't crumble, we cannot now say, this is what you stood for. then I may not have the energy enough to really guarantee that if you become president of Nigeria, that much is going to change. Because under this current political paradigm, if you become president of Nigeria, Amechi has a stake in the government. Atiku has a stake in the government. Eruf has a stake in his government. And many of them, and the political history of these people has been the same, shortchanging the people. And therefore, as a president, I had a large discussion on this subject with somebody who said, Lamte, your argument is not far-fetched. And he said to me that, you know, what's his name? Buhari, late President Buhari, probably had some good intentions, but he couldn't be everywhere. But surrounded himself with a lot of people who, you know, at the end of the day, they were just out to shortchange the people. And at the end of the day, that's what happened. Who says that is not going to happen if we become president of Nigeria? The only thing, the only reason why my support, I'm not going to argue that this is going to be Messiah. It's not going to be Messiah. I don't think so. But I do think that amidst all of these arguments, he will still stand out as, you know, he makes it stand out as the man who's going to be less corrupt. Looking at the scheme of things. But he has not shown to me that he has the power as president to stop corruption in his administration. I somehow see another replica of Goodluck Jonathan, who will just be sat as president, speak the economic big grammars, and a lot of other things are happening by the Desianis of the Nigerian state. I hope that Obi hears my voice. I'm not against him. I'm going to root for him. Apparently not as it was in 2023. But even at that, I have a bigger fear. And that fear is all the effort that is already happening now, that will happen later. How much they will count with this current electoral act that Bola Ahmed Tinubu has signed is a matter for the future. I am not going to be caught unawares. That is why, if the matter is serious, 2023 was serious, I put the matter on my head. 2027, given all of the indices at play, the matter is going to get to my shoulder, where it will be easy to drop and move on. On that note, Nigerians, I do hope that Obi hears my voice and hears my criticism. And the only reason why I put it out there is because he needs to understand that Nigerians want him to take a stand. Even now, Bola Ahmed Tinubu is positioning. As a matter of fact, from the way Bola Ahmed Tinubu is even positioning things right now, you may be very surprised that the guy eventually will just go ahead and win the popular vote. The person who appears not to be seriously positioning things right now in Nigeria is Peter Obi and his counterpart in the ADC. The only people I'm seeing are they are not really proper structure, but there are some shallow voices of very, progressive obedience. That's you need a lot more than that now. And that's why I say, man, look, some things will not just be enough to become a president of a complex country like Nigeria. Only few voices I'm hearing right now. Some people are just trying to make a caricature of the situation. But Bola Ahmed Tinubu, they are using different things. There's the one they call City Boy movement. They are doing things, and some people have come up with the village boy movement. They are making it like it's a comedy. You guys don't know what is happening. Real things needs to be on ground for a presidential election process. And the whole idea to say, oh, they spend shishi, man, let me tell you, the democratic process of Nigeria has it's been ordered over the years now. It's not a process that will cost a zero shishi. It's not a sympathy process. Peter Obi must go and get ready to spend shishi. I'm saying this because that is the language of the people. Peter Obi needs to start standing for something that Nigerians can say, yes, this is the stand of our leader. But right now, the matter get as it be. I will still be on this matter. I will come your way again. My name is from Laptop. I'm here for not too tea. We don't be here now for nearly 1 hour. So my people, God bless you. I just say, man, as a launch pad to come back and just try to browse around the process. There are so many aspirants around, but I spoke about Mr. Peter Obi apparently because he is still the man that at least no other person did defeat right now when I'm tossing this and this and that. Okay? God bless Nigerians. I'll see you guys when I see you. Bye for now.